Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Interpro Show, the latest spin-off of the ever-growing rap family of podcasts. From now until season's end, join me, Caolán Scully, and an all-star panel of guests from each of the four Irish provinces as we discuss the latest news, highlights, controversies, and so much more from across the professional and amateur, men's and women's game in Ireland. We are literally your one-stop shop for all things Irish rugby. So without any further ado, let's start the show. Hello and welcome this evening to episode 1. It is the Interpro Show. It's been asked about for a while, and producer Lee G has decided, for some reason, to hand me the reins. Lee, if you're listening, hello, how are you? If you're coming to us from YouTube, you will recognise Adam Latham and myself from the United Rugby Rewind podcast, and we will get into it in just a minute. Also joining us, we have a Munster man, Ben. Adam, of course, is wearing a very nice red Ulster jersey. It's going to be jersey of the week every week or two with this guy. We know that for sure.
Thank you.
Ben does not have a jersey on him at the moment. It is very warm in Ireland. It was about 30 degrees yesterday. It's fine. We'll let it go. But Ben, as a Munster fan, Limerick hurling fan, Man United fan, Oakland Raiders fan, I just had to get this all out there. Not been a great year for you, but hopefully this is where fortunes start to change because you get to talk jerseys and gimmicks and scrums and loads of different things with myself, Adam, and our Leinster guest to be confirmed at a later date.
Exactly. And look, I'm sure the Leinster fan will love me saying Andrew Porter isn't all that great a scrummager. And very much reclaiming back to the brave and the faithful, nothing is impossible.
Ben the comments. It's already started.
Someone has to take them. It's fine.
Yes, I know.
Look to be proven wrong.
Hey, I get bashed about anyway.
Yeah, well,
as Dylan has said, I'm a United fan. I'm a Raiders fan. I need to have some happiness in my life, and it probably won't come from Munster, so it may as well come from here.
Well, I suppose that's the aim, that we bring together fans from the four provinces. As we said, we are in the process of getting a Leinster guest. It's just come a couple of weeks too early, but that is being sorted. So if there's any Leinster fans listening, they will be there to defend you when we return in about 2 to 3 weeks' time. But you will know the dulcet tones of Mr. Adam Latham, England's favourite Northern Irishman. Granted, that's not a very long list, though, at the same time. Adam, I'm going to bring you in to say hello. You've been doing the URR pod. You've been talking about Leinster. You've been talking about, Ulster players you've forgotten, like Michael Heaney. And you're going to do the same thing with us, I can assume.
Yeah, so Mike Stanley was a Samoan fly half that only played twice for us. And, I think he played for Samoa in the 2015 World Cup. But anyway, hello, guys. It's the way I wanted to introduce me to the Irish podcast when I picked someone up.
Yeah, well, look, I know Provincial State of Mind are a great podcast who were, myself and Ben in particular, are quite friendly with the lads. And they will talk about all things like Lidl and Bluey, but we're going to talk about jerseys and random players that you have forgotten. I actually think we should make that a weekly segment. Just start off and someone just walks out and be like, remember this guy? Yeah, you don't. This is Gerhard van den Heever and he's the quickest man to ever grace Thomond Park. But we actually have a lot to get into this week.
Oh no.
Because
does anybody remember Ricky Andrew, the fullback who went on to coach Spain?
Is that John Andrew's brother by any chance?
It is.
Oh my God.
It is. Yeah, it is. Boom. Yes.
Oh God.
I'm just going to sit in the corner and let you off for an hour.
Yeah, you may as well, to be honest, man. If Lee has a listen over this, he's actually going to think this was the wrong idea. You cannot control these guys. But look, here we are. Over the course of the show, we're going to talk summer tour. We're going to get into a little bit of depth chart talk with Ireland because that's the main takeaway from the last couple of weeks. Every single week, we're going to talk about a bit of women's AIL or community and amateur rugby news in Ireland. We'll have a little bit on that with the Ireland 20s and the Women's Rugby World Cup upcoming. And of course, the Lions. You'll see it in the title. It's all about Lions these days. Get behind the Lions, mun, all that kind of stuff. Got to get behind the boys. But I don't know if the two lads are going to do that, so I may need to roll them in. We're going to pick our Test 23. We have very similar backlines, but very different forward packs. That's all coming at the end of the show. We're going to start, of course, with Ireland. That summer tour of Georgia and Portugal. It was a little bit short, just 2 tests, but Ireland racking up 140 points in those 2 games. Record-breaking win over Portugal. Most points scored, most conversions ever scored in a game for Ireland. So many different things. Adam, I know it can feel like a fruitful endeavour, but at the same time, there's a couple of guys there, Boyle, McCarthy, Clarkson, the front row, for example, Baird, Timony, Coombs, back row, as well as like Kendellan, Casey, you know, the Stuart McCluskey, another young man who got
Yeah.
great minutes. Jamie
Very
Osborne
much so.
got in there. Tommy O'Brien, Calvin Nash, all got chances to really show themselves. There is positives to take from this, even though I think it's like, it was a little bit uncompetitive all the same.
Yeah, I think this tour was really to almost like promote the game in some of those countries like Portugal. To see a skeptical like that, I think most of it, well, when I watched the game and saw it like went up to about 100 points, I was just kind of thinking to myself, if that was New Zealand v Tonga, I would be saying that's not really promoting the game well. Which to be fair, it doesn't. Like a pummeling like that doesn't really do much for the game. But I think in terms of promoting the game, having Ireland come to Portugal and almost saying like we're gonna pick a quite a good team, let's face it, without any Lions in it. Bearing in mind, I think there's about 19 Lions, 18, 19 Lions away with with that setup. I think we showed almost like a respect to them. The fact that we did pick players like Craig Casey and Jack Crawley against the likes of Portugal, the Craig Casey again and Sam Pendergast against Georgia. I think I said in the United Rewind, how I wanted Prendergast to get almost sort of like bullied by the Georgian pack. That didn't really happen. He just sort of ran around it, but it always shows the fact that like the professional setup that we have, um, compared to Portugal, for example, which doesn't have a professional team, I don't think. That's not like recognized by any sort of the Challenge Cup, in that setup. It's a good tour to get lads capped as well. Like it's good to see that some of the formations working and the lads getting used to each other. Shane Bolton as well. It was good to see him come over and score a couple of tries against Portugal. But yeah, I think there's benefits to take away. I think it's very good to get Paul O'Connell in that sort of manager framework as well, because we need to see successors, and is Easterby going to be the successor necessarily? We don't know. But yeah, I think all in all, it's a good way to sort of promote the game in other places where necessarily we wouldn't normally touch, and normally big teams wouldn't touch. So yeah, I think I would wish it would have been longer, but that's all I can say about that.
You make a really
Yeah,
good
no,
point.
I think that's all fair. And like, you look at this particular tour, yes, Ireland scored a lot of points. Yes, they went very strong. Like, we'll talk about the two Lions call ups a little bit later on. But Ben, like, what's your abiding memory from this? Because I know people will look at that Portugal game and they'll be like, is this fair? Should this have happened? All this kind of stuff. But at the same time, you got to get fixtures somewhere. Once England got Argentina, Ireland were always on the back foot. Like that was like the first
Yeah.
big tour that was announced. And to be fair, Georgia, Portugal, not a bad one. I know they've kind of regressed since the World Cup. So what's your kind of takeaway from these two games?
Well, and that's a lot of pre-tournament. I think we were all excited in what Georgia, particularly what Portugal could do, considering how good a World Cup they had. Is there a lot to take away from Irish point of view? Probably not. We did get minutes in, lads. We saw how good Casey and Crowley can be as a combination. We saw the week before Sam with a bit of space is legitimately excellent. I know we're going to talk about him in a minute, but again, Clarkson had two really good games, has got a reward for it now. Look, are we going to remember the series in 6 months? Probably not. Are we going to go back to type when November international conditions run around? Yes, almost certainly. We're probably not going to see Casey and Crowley again. But again, it's good to get minutes in, guys. Adam makes a great point on getting Paulie experience of actually leading a coaching group by himself. It's excellent. And I think I saw Portugal were literally giving tickets away for €5-10 for this game. They wanted to get people
that
in.
happens at URC venues as well. So I think Adam's obligated not to pass comment on something like that, to be fair. But no, like I agree there. And I don't want to jump away too quickly. I also don't want you, agreeing with each other all season. So hopefully not. But just
we'll agree this week. Going forward, it won't happen all that much.
Yeah, we'll agree this week. I think largely you will end up agreeing this week. But just kind of on that, like, minutes are important. And obviously, like for Portugal in particular, the standard is below that of a URC team. And you kind of seen that with the result. But and Ben, I'll come to you first on this one. Across those two games, is there anyone that you would have said, like, and then we'll think about the Japan game, we'll do a depth chart now in a second. I want to see that guy feature against Japan in the autumn.
Most people would have said Clarkson. I want him to get more minutes. I think he will continue to get minutes now, but bossed a very good Georgian pack. Looked excellent against Portugal. And I am, and frequent listeners will notice, very critical of the Irish front row. Any more minutes we can get in the guys and get them scrummaging against big units, even if they're not URC level, get them scrummaging. Get them holding their elbow up and scrummaging in a straight line against top quality opposition.
Yeah.
Every week.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. And like Clarkson's a good show. I thought, again, you don't want to take too much from the Portugal game compared to another one. I actually thought both Tommy O'Brien and Calvin Nash both had two excellent games between them.
I'd love to say that Calvin played really well, but I would expect Calvin Nash, same with Stuart McCluskey, I'd expect him to play well
and most
against
of the
that
lads,
opposition.
Especially in that backline. I know the backline against Portugal is a bit changed, but like you take the backline against Georgia, like Tommy O'Brien is a veteran, or sorry, a URC veteran at this stage because he's 27, but he's internationally young. Most of these lads, he's 26 or 27. He's about 18 months younger than Jacob. Jacob Stockdale, that is, to our international audience. He doesn't need a surname in Ireland. Yeah, he's at that level, but such was 2018. And again, we'll get into that in another date. But that's the thing, you got a lot of high quality URC players like the back row. And for me, what really impressed me was how good Timoney and Coombs were together against Georgia, because we've seen it so often. Number one, that guys can't do the Josh van der Fleer role because Josh van der Fleer is the outlier in the international game in terms of open sides, in terms of what his strengths are. But as well as that, so often when you put two like workhorses, two guys who will do everything for their province or for their team together, they almost get a bit lost. They're almost in each other's way. Timoney top the tackle count, Coombs top the carry count, and he come off with 20 minutes to go, and it actually looked like so punchy. But I know, Adam, like, I want to get your opinion on this as well. I know you only see bits of these games because, unlike the two of us, you have a social life. But who is there anyone that we haven't mentioned or we have mentioned that stood out to you across these two games?
I really well, we mentioned Casey. I really liked I love watching Casey play. I also thought Ben Murphy was really snappy when he came off the bench against Portugal, and also Hugh Gavin in the Portugal game was pretty, like, he did everything well, and he's 21. I've just looked up his age. Like, he done everything that you can do. He just played really well, but I think that's also the wealth of playing with Stuart McCluskey on the inside of you, like having that sort of veteran head on him. I can't believe I'm calling him a veteran head now, but having that sort of head next to him, I think just opened up Hugh Gavin's game completely. Another one that I was quite impressed with in the Georgia game, but he looked a bit knackered in the Portugal game, but I don't know if that was heat. But Cormac Isachukwu, I thought, played quite well. He played that second row well. There's a lot of talk in certainly Ulster spheres, whereas is he more of a sixth than a second row? But I think the Ireland setup wants him to play second row. And if he was
I
in
can
that
see that for him and Ahern. Ahern and Mangan, I can see two of them at least would be looked at as second rows.
Well,
But
yeah,
can I jump in? Sorry, Adam, but like,
it's okay, it's all
you'll
good.
flag this yourself. Is there a possible anti-Midas touch? The Ulster lads were partying with not Cormac Isachukwu, it's not his fault, with Wayne Lineker. Like, is that part of the reason? Like, never go to Ibiza and hang around with the lesser like Lineker brother?
I just couldn't believe that video, because I even saw Alan O'Connor and Andrew Warwick in the background of that video, and you're like, not those lads, no.
Andrew Warwick is a man. Andrew Warwick and Stephen Archer are two lads that I would love to chat scrums with in the back of a pub, supping pints of Guinness. Like, that's sorry.
Yeah.
Andy Warwick, I don't know what his pint of stout would be. For
I reckon
Archie, it's probably Murphy's, I would assume.
Yeah,
He
I'd
doesn't
say
strike me as a Beamish man.
Yeah.
Oh no, I can see Archie having a Beamish in the sunshine. Beamish on one side, April on the other. Get him in the corner, have a lovely time.
Now Gavin Coombs drinking April, now that's a surprise. But that's soon to be dual star, Gavin Coombs. You were saying, Adam.
nothing that I'd love more than the picture of like a dim damp pub with you, Caolán, Stephen Archer, and Andrew Ork sipping on mojitos, talking about scrums,
Let's make it
scrums
happen,
and
people.
tractors, scrums and tractors.
Let's
And
make it
you need
happen.
John Hodnett if you're doing tractors. Get Hodnett in the
Oh,
background. It's
jeez.
fine.
I found the John
But
Hodnett video from South Africa 2 years or 3 years ago now, where he just found a tractor at the side of a pitch and decided, "Can I drive this?" And I completely forgot that happened. But I
but
do
I
want to move
think
on and do a little bit on the depth chart because, as I said, this so much of this is about the depth and whatever. And like,
JJ
look,
Hanrahan's on the depth chart. Sorry.
well, yeah, like he's going to be
He's
at Munster.
technically playing in Ireland.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
I'm just going to kind of go through it. So we know who like the mainstays. I have 20 players listed as Lions. I could have listed Caelan Doris to be fair, but Porter, Sheehan, Kelleher, Furlong, Beelan, Clarkson, McCarthy, Ian Henderson, of course, two-time Lion, Byrne, James Ryan, Van der Fleer, Conan, Gibson Park, Lowe, Aki, Ringrose, Henshaw, another two-time Lion, Hanson, Keenan, and Jamie Osborne. Of course, Osborne and Clarkson's call-ups. We get into a little bit later on. I've got all the guys who've been Irish capped, a couple of guys who've gotten A games or gotten call-ups, kind of try to get them in there. Ben, like you look at this and you're like, Jesus, Ireland have got good depth. Now it's certainly thinner in some spots, and especially you look at, second row and back row and flankers, they haven't capped as many players. Like considering Max Egan, most of his minutes have come at number 8 for Ireland and when he has gotten minutes. But there's good opportunities there, and you look through it, and you look at like if you go to column D, the third choice lads. If you went with Mill and Ahern and Timoney and Keane Prendergast, Hugh Gavin, Tommy O'Brien, if they all played against Japan, things are looking like they're actually progressing for Ireland. Because I think the
Yeah.
big thing about 2024 was they were in win now mode that no one really came through apart from Jamie Osborne.
But you could conceivably put that entire third string depth chart. You could have started them against Portugal and had an incredible game. You can do it against Japan.
You could probably go one further over. You could probably go to 4, and I don't think you'd have any issues disposing
No,
of Portugal because they're all,
I really want Nathan Doak to start getting Ireland gaps. I think he's excellent. I really do. I know Ben Murphy flavoured him up for a myriad of reasons. Doak should get a cap somewhere.
yeah. I
Kilgallen's
think
a
that was
bit off,
unlucky not
but
to get
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
cap. I'm sure Craig's captaincy played a part, meant they couldn't
Yeah.
really drop him. But at the same time, I'd have given maybe Ben Murphy 25 minutes against Georgia and Nathan Doak 25 minutes against Portugal, even more. That one's really unlucky.
I think with
Adam, your
Nathan,
kind of thoughts on this? I know it's not perfect. This was not given to me by Andy Farrell himself ranting, but
yeah.
like just throwing it together, like your
if
kind
it
of
was,
thoughts.
you'd have Finton going up above Ben Murphy.
So
I mean, look, all the Leinster lads will be ahead, but look, that's a conversation for another day, guys. We'll do that with our
where
Leinster guest when they come on.
where's Casper in the 10 chart if Andy Farrell? Anyway, I think I think James McNabney like I'm like looking at all these players, but I'm like James McNabney is one of those players that's gonna it's quite sad because he's done his ACL and the Ireland Cup we won't see much of him this year. I find it really interesting Ben about Nathan Doak. I think Nathan Doak needs to fasten his game up more to be in contention for that international spot. I think he is very stop starty and almost like second guesses himself. And when he second
Yeah.
guesses himself, he normally goes to the referee about it. That's what I always sort of think happens with Nathan. But I think that he's always I think he's always like a season away from where he should be at. And I think I would love him to have an Ireland cap. But I think Ben Murphy is sort of leapfrogged it in terms of how well he's played this season.
Yeah, like I mentioned Nathan Doak, but I'm pretty sure I said to you, Caolán, that during COVID, I wanted Doak he had to push on at that point to get into
Yeah.
the Irish camp.
And it's the McFarland. He's probably one of the players who's lost confidence the most since McFarland left because
Yeah.
he was kind of just about to break down that door. It's proper competition with John Cooney. Now he did get the jersey back this year, don't get me wrong, and kind of nailed it down. But he just never really kicked on after
Yeah.
after Dan McFarland left. I do want to ask
I,
you both of you a question on this. So you look through the different lines, some stronger than another. Like I look at Hooker there, Ben. You can almost take the Rob Herring is probably in his last season with Ireland. The rest, that's really strong, really exciting. Second row is largely unproven, but a lot of exciting players. Obviously, Ireland always has good back rows. And centre, for me, is an interesting one because obviously our three Lions and Stuart McCluskey are all that bit older. But then you look at it and you're like, well, Dan Kelly's internationally capped, as is James Hume and Hugh Gavin now. Jude Postlethwaite is ready for it. Tom Farrell arguably should have got that call up. There's a lot of spots there in an Irish depth chart that are pretty healthy. And I don't want it to all be fluff, but when you look at it in terms of URC level, there's a lot of lads there for you to drop them in the Six Nations game. You'd be confident in their abilities.
Yep.
Yeah, look, you'd hope that Cooney, Farrell, even Tector will get chances this November at least. Postlethwaite should be in the Irish camp pretty much continuously at this point. He is that level. He's that good. Fullback
probably missed out
worries
with
me.
his season. Probably went not down, but like certainly didn't kick on in the back end of the season where Ulster started having more struggles, and he started to pick up injuries as well.
Well, a lot of that is down to Ulster's fixture list towards the end of the season was just awful.
Yeah.
Like they had that day in Bordeaux where arguably could have won the game based on the first hour. Yeah. After that, it kind of trailed off.
How would you know? Were you there? Oh, sorry, you were there actually. Imagine.
I was there. I wore an ultra top and everything. It was excellent.
Yeah, I didn't. Sorry about that, guys. I was.
Damn you, Caolán.
Yeah. But no, and like this is the thing, Adam. Like there is certain parts of that depth chart that you would be worried about. I think Loosehead is the big one. Andrew Porter, he's your 70-minute guy. He's so important. He's a lion. Jack Boyle has 4 caps. Michael Milne has 2. Jeremy Luckman, I think, has 8. And then Paddy McCarthy hasn't played a lot for Leinster. Josh Wycherley, proven at Munster level, but just can't stay fit for a run of games. Or if he does, fair play, but he's kind of struggled in recent years. Usinoff is still under 20s. That's probably the one position when you look through that. And arguably 9, but that's for a different day's conversation. But Loosehead prop is probably the one position where you're like, geez, if we lose one guy there, we could be under the cot.
But I find the Loosehead prop in the modern game so interesting because I think when you look at I'm sure we're going to talk about Lions later. I think every nation is starting to struggle with the Loosehead prop. Like there's no Andrew Porter is like the perfect modern Loosehead prop, but was it Showman on the weekend? Wasn't he playing loose? And he played a full 80 minutes. He played a full 80 minutes. It's like you need like a Loosehead to be like a workhorse at the minute. Like everyone's struggling to find Loosehead props, and I think it's going to be
an extra hooker, aren't they?
Yeah, almost. And you see like the likes of Angus Bell who's coming to Ulster, and he's a rapid wee Loosehead prop. Like he's very bashful. But I think everyone at the minute is trying to find that right Loosehead prop. But I think it's all the forever changing rules and the likes of scrummaging that makes it more difficult and probably benefits the tight head more. Hence, look at the tight head chart, for example, when we see the Loosehead. There's always that talk about O'Toole being a Loosehead prop, but I think that's almost dead and buried, the fact that we've signed Angus Bell. And also who did O'Toole struggle against? Was it Fiji? That he came on against, was it Fiji?
He came on against Fiji, I believe.
At Loosehead,
he wasn't bad around the field, as you'd imagine. But as well as that, he also seems to be put on an extra bit of timber looking at the last few weeks, probably with in mind staying a tight head prop.
Yeah, I'd say he's probably staying at tight head because I think Tag Furlong and Bealham are fairly. Well, not Bealham necessarily, but you'd think about ages. Isn't Bealham about 32?
Bealham is older than Furlong, I think.
Well, so you're probably looking at Clarkson and O'Toole to sort of navigate that future pack. Do you know what I mean? Well, Scotty Wilson as well. I would love to see
Furlong play in the Six Nations. Like, are we at the point where we have to start saying we're moving on from Tadhg Furlong, and then that depth chart
2 years out from World Cup, Ben?
Hairy.
But this is the thing. Like, and Tadhg Furlong, in fairness, I think what Tadhg Furlong's proven the last few weeks is, I don't know if I need club rugby. If I can just get my body at a fairly decent level and get a contact ready, he still has the quality. But I'm sure, and I don't want to rush through every conversation, we could do like an out half debate, which would be so fresh and so original. But we've got to do like Lions content and all that as well, which is also so fresh and so original. But just like on like my own eyes looking through it, I do think second row probably needs to be looked at, but a lot of quality there. Like, so even you look at like who I've listed number 4, like your more powerful guys, Mangan, Murphy, Joyce, Edogbo, if we get him back fit at Munster this year, Dowling, Deeney, Spicer, so many talented athletes. I think the big misconception I find in Irish rugby at the moment is And especially when you look at a list like this, is we don't produce that type of athlete here. Lee Barron is
No,
like
no.
Dan Sheehan. Tom Ahern is like Ryan Baird. Finn Tracy is actually similar enough to Tommy O'Brien. Almost every
Yeah.
player that you hear that about, there is someone else there. I think we're very lucky that way
I think
that we
I
produce
would.
different types of athletes.
Oh yeah, like I think Tom Stewart's quite a rapid hooker when he's sort of like a Dan Sheehan type, but he's sort of unlucky with injuries in terms of that sense.
Mm.
And you have like pure athletes coming through like a Dogbo. I just like even like looking at the left wing, we haven't really capped anyone at left wing.
Not in that power winger
No,
mold. No,
no,
they've
not
all been
like
your elusive guys that have gotten capped.
yeah. But then I would argue that Zach Ward is going to be like that sort of
I think
like
so.
if
I think
he
him and
probably kick
Caolán,
on.
if they're with whoever's fit between the two of them, should probably get capped against Japan later on the
Yeah,
year.
If Zach
Um,
Ward
yeah.
gets that opportunity, he will run with that 11 jersey. He's
Oh, he
just
will.
stunning.
yeah, he's a
Yeah.
great player to watch. And honestly, long term, and people don't agree with me with this, I can see Jamie Osborne as that power winger. He's a very similar player to James Lowe. I know, like,
Mm.
we get this kind of cliche of, oh, he's got great hands because he plays centre. He's good at that. He also runs great lines, great boot, really strong in contact. I can see him taking that. But we will get onto all that. We'll have November tests, we'll have Six Nations, we'll have God only knows what else to come in the weeks that follow. And just remembering how to use Zoom there for a second, which always seems to be a bit of an issue for myself. But we're just going to move on in the next part of the show. We're just going to do a little bit on the women's and the under 20s. Ben, I'll start with yourself. Aoife Wafer last week emerged as an injury doubt for Ireland's, not only Ireland's warm up games, but also as far as the New Zealand game at the pool stages in round three in Brighton. With Aaron
Yeah.
King already out, Dorothy Wall already out, I will do more on this when the tournament kicks off. That's really frustrating because like your pack build changing massively. And when we talk about we don't have this type of athlete in the men's game, where we don't have another Aoife Wafer. No
No,
other country has another Aoife Wafer.
we don't have an Aoife Wafer. And like if we still had Aaron King, you could maybe have said losing Aoife isn't an absolute disaster.
Hmm.
Our pack build, as you said, is now under huge trouble. Beman hasn't had the women's team playing excellently. World Cup was going to be a struggle. Anyway, and look, if we don't have Wafer until you said the New Zealand game, she's out until.
New Zealand game is what they're aiming for, as far as I know. Yeah,
I mean, not
it's
looking great.
yeah, it's not ideal. It's some re-emergence to the game. It's like your first game is going to be against the Black Ferns, but as I said, we will talk about all that because we will be getting up to speed in kind of late August when the tournament kicks off, and we'll do a weekly piece on the women's team. But Adam, another team who are up in action at the moment that has got a lot of headlines. They were just playing before we hit record here this evening, which is the Ireland under 20s. They've won just two games all year, one against Georgia and one
Yeah.
against Scotland. Scotland have gone on to beat them twice since that game in the Six Nations. And the most remarkable part of all this, and I think what gets forgotten, it hasn't really been covered because it's a Lions year. But this team were beating Scotland, Italy, Wales last year at under 18 and under
Yeah.
19. Like it's very hard not to point at coaching and morale and injuries and that side of things as opposed to actual ability.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. Getting beat by Italy under 20s as well twice, but I know that the under 20 structure in those countries are like really like there's an embarrassment of riches there in terms of the under 20 squad. Like it's certainly for Georgia as well, who we've beaten, but I, it's really hard to say because when we look at the under 20s, like in the past, like the Richie Murphy teams or like the teams before that, we always had a solid under 20 setup where we would have beaten boys like we would have beaten the likes of New Zealand. We would have beaten like we would have went toe to toe with the likes of like England and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it's really sort of disheartening to see the score updates like the one today, the 21-22 against Scotland under 20s. You know, it's wild when you think about we have a setup where we have what a Leinster under 20s, an Ulster under 20s, a Connacht under 20s, and a Munster under 20s, whilst they probably just have the Glasgows and the Edinburgh under 20 set up. Like we've got as a country an embarrassment of riches in terms of how our academies are set up. And you would argue that Like even like you'd say Italy as well, they'd probably have the two professional setups. I'm not so sure about Italy in terms of the under 20s, but you have to say it must be a morale thing. Like the coaching, like when a good Ireland under 20s team is coached well is when they beat teams that we should be beating. But as you said, we've only won twice in the past year. Um, it's sad to see, really. It's not like one of those that we like. There is a lot of exciting talent in that squad as well. Um, but they're just not being coached to the right standard, I believe.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. And like, I would never be the first to just say it's always the coaches or it's always the players. There's plenty of people who do that. But I think the more I've watched them this year, it's felt like Wooten or Logan at 9 will play to the 10, which has been Tom Wood in recent games, was Wisniewski before that. Smith would crash up the middle. They go again
Mhm.
with maybe a Foy or a McCarthy. Oftentimes they were struggling to get clean ball to
Yeah.
present, which was a real indictment of this team. And often you'd see a loose kick then after that. Like we've seen a lot of kicks out in the full or box kicks that weren't even close to being contested. We've seen lads like Paddy Farrell didn't play at all in the Six Nations, one of the better players in the this tournament. Things like that. Connor Fahey has been injured, and Alan Spicer, they've been huge losses. But you also can't just point to injuries because when you lose players, it's up to coaching to find a system that suits what you have left then as well. And it does strike of a team that is low on morale. I think that's natural. They're
Mhm.
19, 20 years of age. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I don't know what everyone else was doing in 19, 20, but I certainly wasn't running around in 30-degree heat in Italy and
Yeah.
enjoying, struggling to beat Georgia and Italy at that. So it has been a frustrating one, and we may talk about that in a few weeks' time. I don't know. It's kind of done now, but hopefully we
Mhm.
see them kick on next year. And look, I would like to see a kind of focus on it because you don't want to have a down year after so many good years and just say, oh, it'll be fine. You always have to look into these things, always.
Yeah.
And I think that's something David Humphreys will
Some
do
of some
very
of the
well.
worry on my side is only that the IRFU will push the panic button now. And they'll
Yeah,
Yeah.
say we need to, because they've gone to the academies previously in the 20s, have done badly and tried to almost restructure certainly three of them from the ground up to try and fix it. When we know the academy system is working very well, we know the underage setups at the four provinces are excellent.
Mhm.
Um, if we push a panic button now, you're going to put four provinces back 5, 6 years again. And my worry is Humphreys will just say, "Oh no, we need to fix this now." When you could almost
Yeah.
say this tournament hasn't gone well, fine, but let's reset for Six Nations and go again.
yeah,
Yeah, Ben, you make a very good point because Humphreys has a tendency to just well, look at the sevens program for example.
Yeah,
He cuts the sevens program whilst we were at an all-time high. We came like what fifth in the Olympics. He pushes the panic button and then they go Leinster go and sign Jordy Barrett or Rico Awane. That contract alone would fund a seven squad.
put an entire seven
Do
squad
you know
exactly.
like
for,
like
for
I think it was Harry
almost
McDonough.
for a long time.
Yeah,
Like the guts of a
exactly.
year is sort of a one. But and we're not here to just talk about
No,
sevens or Leinster or whatever.
No,
And I'm
no.
not shutting you down, but that is a
Yeah.
crucial part because it has to come
No.
from investment somewhere. And the
Yeah.
annoying thing is, and look, this may annoy some people and some people may agree, there is money in underage rugby in Ireland
Yeah.
between development officers, the schools game, things like that. We also hope that we don't get a situation where it's not the RFU who has that money when you get to 20s and then players kind of struggle. And I think the A interprovincials this year were probably a net zero. I don't think you could say they were positive. I also wouldn't be too harsh to say they were negative. They were fine. They served a purpose. But at the same time, to bring it back to coaching, I've seen the likes of Conor Fahey play really well for Leinster A, but not for the Ireland under 20s. The same with like Ian McCarthy with Connacht Eagles and not, and so on and so forth. So that's one to look at. As you said, I hope they don't hit the panic button. I don't think they will, but I think a rejig is never any harm. And look, like sometimes as well, you will have great coaches who get unlucky, like Noel McNamara, European winning coach, got unlucky the year he was there. I think all of his hookers got injured that year, and they were down at like fourth choice. But these things will happen as well, and it's kind of we had questions in on Twitter about this, like, do we learn anything from Ireland's last two games? I think we touched on that. I think we do feel like we learned a bit about the pipeline. Have we an issue with depth with the 20s as well? I don't think it's depth personally. I think it's something stale kicked in a long, long time ago. I'd almost look at probably mid Six Nations, if I'm entirely honest, that this is just kind of gone downhill since then because they did perform well against England in round one, beat Scotland in round two, but that Wales game just it's been downhill since there. We will get on to Lions now. I know the Lions. Ben and Adam, do you want to lead us in a rendition of Power of Four? No? Okay, that's too much like 2005. But lots of things about this tour have been like 2005. That is the big thing that people have been talking about at the moment because there are, what, 14 Leinster players in this squad, 18 Irish players. Andy Farrell looks set to pick probably 12 or 13 in his match day 23, and we'll get on to that in a few minutes, which could break the record. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's 10 is the record. I could be wrong. Could be 13.
How many Welsh were in the third
It's
test
actually in
against?
English. I think it's England 97 that holds the
Right,
record. But
okay.
like again, a little bit different. Like Irish fans can't bring that up because Ireland couldn't buy a win in the 90s. But again, we'll talk about this another time maybe. Um, Adam, I'll start with yourself. Just your overall thoughts on the line so far. Like poor enough against Argentina with some bright passages, good against the
Yeah,
Force, two bad games, and then kind of beat a team that maybe this is silly of me to ask an Ulster fan their thoughts on a Les Kiss coach team.
well, I think, I think the Lions Argentina game sort of set in the worry for me at the get-go when I watched it. I don't think the Lions have necessarily been challenged defensively, bar the Brumbies game, I'd argue. I don't think they've been challenged since the Argentina game, bar the Brumbies game. And that was when you had a team that was like kind of full of all your sort of your test starters. I think it's been a very interesting tour. I think it's been one of the weirdest sort of tours that I've watched because you've had the likes of Marcus Smith, who's just been on the bench, consistently.
Alex Mitchell, similarly enough.
Alex Mitchell, but they come on and they haven't shown why they're on the bench necessarily. They just come on and play really bland rugby, and you'd like Mitchell is like it was so refreshing to see somebody like Ben White play on the weekend at nine instead of Mitchell. Like I think Thomas Williams was really unlucky to get injured in the first game. Like I think he would have showed a bit of glitz and glamour that he should have, but it's really weird having a Lions tour. I think Ben, you said before we were started recording, the Lions worked 30 years ago when we had struggled against teams like Australia, Ireland. Like I'm just thinking back to like 2013 when we won the series in Australia, and then we played Australia in the Autumn Internationals that November, and we got beat by them in Dublin. That
Yeah.
shows like the golfing class that happened. I think the sort of the 2017 was that sort of trigger point where you thought any like maybe not Scotland, but like any of the team at the times could have beat New Zealand. And it ended as a draw. South Africa was an interesting one because they were the world champions. They had that Rizzy Erasmus sort of push into things. But I can't not see the Lions lose another game, to be honest with you. And it would make it interesting to see if Australia did have a win. Like I would rather them win like the second test and create a wobble to make an interesting third game. But it like that like there's no chance that I'm gonna watch the Pacifico game with a Curtly Beale captaining side. Like it might be more interesting than Les Kiss coached Australian and New Zealand team, which only met up for what a week beforehand, and then they just got absolutely like rolled over. Um, it wasn't an interesting game at all. It just was sort of like Lions score, we pick up the ball, kick it to them, they drop the ball, then we pick up the ball again, line out, we fumble a line out because of course the Lions tour this year, the line out doesn't work because the hookers can't throw the ball and 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 the kickers can't kick. So, it's we're gonna lose a game because James O'Connor is gonna have a last minute kick, and Owen Farrell's gonna
Oh,
be at the pit. Owen Farrell's gonna be on the pitch at the same time. Like that are we back in 2013 again?
Don't let me dream,
we
Adam,
actually might
please.
be. We actually might be back in 2005 though, because that's the comparison that certain people have made, Ben. I did a piece for RT, and what Eddie O'Sullivan's comments were, he was
Sorry.
podcast disclaimer. No, didn't even thought that was a disclaimer. No, but like I did that piece, and like Eddie, look, Eddie can talk a lot of cliches and metaphors. It was hard to disagree with him though. Like there is a sense that like you go so big on the Irish, so big on Irish backroom staff as well, to the point that like David Nucifora is there in his Shane Ross role, as I like to call it, and he'd be in the photos and all that. And it's like, if this goes wrong, be it in Brisbane or I think the second game's in Melbourne, I'm not 100% sure, I think it's in the MCG,
Yes.
then the nerves kicks in. And then Tom Farrell, not Tom Farrell, Andy Farrell will be answering Tom English even worse than he has done in recent weeks, for example. There really is a sense that this could tip over the edge. Or, and here's the other side of it, the Lions will walk in next week. They'll steamroll Australia. No one in Australia give a shit about the second test because they feel like they're going to get bet. And we have a different type of 2005.
Like, I have no doubt Cohesion RFC will kick in at some point in the test, be it the first test, second test. It will kick in eventually. Eddie O'Sullivan's correct. The questions should be asked at this point. He picked a majority of the Irish squad after us coming third in the Six Nations.
Third in the
Not
Six
playing
Nations.
very well.
One of the biggest losses in years to France.
Yeah.
Didn't play all that well in any game, really. He's brought in an assistant coach who has never coached a day in his life at the pro level.
Mm-hmm.
He's left Paul O'Connell, who actually had coached at home, to take an Irish team down to hammer Portugal and Georgia.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, O'Connell did say he didn't really look for it as well.
And like
Ron O'Gara said he did look for it, and the call never came. But he's been
I've no
great on
doubt
Sky.
Johnny Sexton did look to coach the Lions.
Hold on. Owen Farrell's appeared on Sky. Like Conor Murray is going to get selected next.
Look, Conor Murray is a 4-time Lion. It is his birthright, but I think he's actually selling books at the moment, or trying to get them out of the
sell his book.
But you were saying, Ben,
like and we've now brought in. I think we could talk for hours about Tom Clarkson getting selected for the Irish squad, for the Lions squad even. He had a very good end of season. He had a very good game against Georgia, decent game against Portugal. Is there any other country or any other nation in which he gets selected for the Lions? Like if he's English, if he's Welsh, he's Scottish, is he remotely near the Lions spot? No.
Well, that's the thing, because Joe Hayes. Now I haven't watched England Argentina, and I'm just
Joe
going off
Hayes
people
should be in the
who
Lions
know
squad.
rugby, and Joe Hayes played very well against Argentina, and it's like. And as well, optics are so important. Like you have to remember, people are like, oh, optics, politics doesn't matter. It's like it's the Lions. Like it's literally all politics. Like, do you want it? Like I know this is a bit of a bugbear for anyone who may be listening in England. Let me show you a history book about the last 800 years, and tell me then the politics.
I went to the Wolftones last night. I had a lovely time.
They're knocking at my door, Caolán. You can't say it. They're knocking at my door.
Yeah, it's fine. You'll have Siobhan McSweeney of Derry Girls backing us up. It's fine. You know, you'd be grand. And Dara O'Brien. But
Paul Mescal, he lives in London.
I didn't know that. See, you learn something new every day. But you see what I mean? Like optics and all that is important. And if Farrell starts to look tetchy, and if you're bringing up guys and it starts to look like, oh, this is just an Irish summer tour, essentially, yeah, you can see Farrell's rationale, but you can see you can't. For me, you can't separate it. You can't really defend Farrell here. He's made a rod for his own bat.
He had the sale prop in, I always butcher his name, Asher
Pokafajor.
He was in the preliminary Lions squad. He trained with the team. He has more minutes this season than Thomas Clarkson has.
Yeah.
So does Hayes. And yet he looks at a player who he had in preliminary squad, had a wonderful end of season with Sale, and still reverts to Thomas Clarkson.
Yeah.
That for me that's a question that should be asked. It won't be asked because of this morning's call-ups. And there's now no new news to talk about. But
and instead, it's the comms team that were wrong for calling up Tom Clarkson by himself is the kind of prevailing thought.
Yeah,
and I understand it. I do understand it. I just don't think you can go down that way, because ultimately it's a rugby selection. People are there are people looking at you and Ashman and Rory Sutherland, former Ulster prop Rory Sutherland, should we say. Gareth Milsanovic coming soon, and Tom Court.
Yeah,
but
imagine
you're looking at it and you're like, some of these just don't make sense. And like even the point, and I think Bernard Jackman nailed it earlier on today on the 42. He was like, but as well as that, why are you calling up players for that midweek game? That's lads' last chance to get into the test team.
Yeah,
you're afraid of injuries, but that's an important part of it as well. So Adam, like, and like Andy Farrell has nothing left to prove as a coach. He has done it. Like, don't get me wrong. I know he has won a World Cup. South African guys on the comments remind me of that. Tell me how many World Cups you've won. But yes, he's nothing left to prove. But at the same time, like, you can't have it every way. You can't do your own thing and be surprised when people don't like what your own thing is, even if it's worked before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I find it wild how um all of the sort of announcements for the squads go, because you can just imagine Andy's just on the phone just going, who do I call? Who do I call next? Who can I call next? Like, I think if Clarkson and the Scottish lot were announced with Osborne, we would have a Geography 5 moment. We'd like, not the Geography 6, but we'd have a Geography 5 moment where you go, why is Corey Hill in a Lions squad? But they I think they did that on purpose
Let's not talk
where
about Corey Hill for the rest of the year. Anyways, go on.
oh shit, sorry. Yeah, anyway. I could have picked anyone else, but you know what? That's the one that's stuck
Yeah.
in my mind. Anyway, but oh God, I'd like to apologize. But I would like it's one of those where Rory Sutherland getting picked for a Lions squad wasn't in my bingo card. Darcy Graham should have been in the Lions squad
Yep.
originally instead of Van der Merwe, but because Van der Merwe scored a hat trick against the Oz New Zealand Invitational, everyone's like, "Oh, should he be in the test squad?" No.
To be fair, I'm not seeing that reaction. Most of the people I talk to are like, "Yeah, Duhan, great try scorer. Yeah, Duhan, you know you have to defend as well.
It,
Like, you're not a wide receiver." So
it was just primarily all the people that were waiting for Oasis at the Manchester pub that I was at. It was just like, oh, Van der Merwe's pretty good with the ball, and I was like, I don't think they've ever really watched the
that
game in
match
their
kicked
lives.
off at 11 a.m. The fuck are
And
you
I
doing in
was
the pub at 11 a.m.?
whoa, I was at a pub at 11 a.m. after a Rizzle Kicks concert. It was great. It was one of those moments where I'm
I'm
like,
just I'm just going to interject there, Adam, because I know where this is going. I know we're largely in agreement here. I think it's been a good debate, but I do want to just touch on the teams that we have selected, because obviously the first test coming up this Saturday at 11 a.m. It's gonna take all of the attention. We know that. You also don't need to remind us that's going to take so much attention. Sky will have all the ads. Great weekend for sport, by the way, because you'll have Tour de France, you'll have the rugby, you'll have the Open Championship, you've got the All Ireland hurling final, and do you know what? Before I go any further, if there's anyone listening in the UK, you can watch the All Ireland hurling final on BBC on Sunday at 3:30 between Cork and Tipperary, and lads, you will not regret it. That is the first one. But anyways, Lions 23 from one sport to another, because that's what rugby podcasts do in this day and age. Adam, you've gone first. Your team is, for anyone on audio, fullback Blair Kinghorn, Tommy Freeman and James Lowe on the wings, Aki and Hugh Jones in centre, Gibson Park Russell at halfback. Then Porter Sheehan Stewart, Captain Maro Itoje alongside Tyke Byrne, with Jack Morgan, Josh van der Fleer and Ben Earl. I'm going to get you to go through the backs because yourself and Ben have picked the same back line. 9 and 10 picks itself, I think. The rest of it, though, you've gone Aki Jones in midfield, firstly. I know Gary Ringrose is out. Why not the Huey Pilotu pairing?
Um, I I would see. There's been a lot. My backline. I've already been scratching my head about it. Aki Jones. I don't think we've seen enough. I think Aki's just sort of like in that starting berth at 12. It's whether or not you want him in 23 and to Lotto, and to him starting and him at 23. I just sort of picked it based on what I think Andy Farrell might do with that sort of selection. Um, just primarily because Hugh Jones has had an amazing tour, and I think it's like one of the most exciting players in that back line. Because I think every week on when I see a team sheet, I sort of think, oh, that's quite a slow back line. And with like Kinghorn and Jones, and I'd say Tommy Freeman, that sort of brings a spark to it. But yeah, I was humming and hawing about the centre partnership. I was also humming and hawing about the back three, but I'm sure Kellen, you get onto that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you may as well jump in there. So, James Lowe, Tommy
Yeah,
Freeman, not going to say
yeah,
consensus pick because I've heard good arguments from good pundits like Chris Ashton about going elsewhere. Blair Kinghorn
yeah,
is the big one. They haven't said whether he's going to be fit or not. I assume you're just going with if he's fit, he plays because
yeah.
he's Blair
But
Kinghorn.
I was also thinking about whether or not he should play 11. Primarily based on the fact that he's played most of his games. Well, the last 5 games, I think for Toulouse, he was playing at 11, and putting Hugo Keenan in at 15. But I don't know what's up with Hugo. I don't think he's. I think he's
Well,
in a pretty dud form at the minute.
he also his form hasn't been hectic. He also lost 6 kg within a week with that
With
viral
that
bug that he
illness,
had.
yeah,
So
yeah,
there's that as
yeah,
well. And
yeah.
you've gone with Lowe and Freeman as your two wingers.
Yeah.
No Mac Hansen.
No, I think Tommy Freeman is the most Andy Farrell wing that you could possibly have that's not Irish. I don't think Mac Hansen's necessarily had a great tour. I think he's had shimmers of what we know that he can do.
Mm.
I don't think he's had a necessarily a great season, to be honest with you. Um, and I think Tommy Freeman's played really well this season. I think he deserves that 14 berth. I wouldn't be mad if Mac Hansen started, but then I think you would get into the sort of consensus that Andy Farrell is going to pick a massive cohesion squad, but I think Tommy
Yeah.
Freeman matches that cohesion better. And I think that Blair Kinghorn Freeman low combo would do very well in terms of the kicking game as well. So yeah, that's why I picked
Yeah, no,
Freeman.
it's interesting. Ben, we'll move on to your team here now. For people on audio, really quickly. First of all, you got to say backline: Kinghorn, Freeman, low back three, Aki and Jones, Russell Gibson Park. You've got Ellis Genge over Andrew Porter, Sheehan, Will Stewart is your tight head prop, which actually that's what Adam went for. Apologies, I thought that was different. You've gone with Itoje and McCarthy in the second row, with Big Ollie Chesham at 6, Henry Pollock needs no introduction, and Jack Conan is your number 8. I'll just start with Ellis Genge really quickly because I was humming and hawing on this one. You've gone with Genge to start. Why? Apart from form,
I
obviously.
apart from form, I said this multiple times this evening, he's a better scrummager.
Okay.
Schmidt will target that scrum early. If we get
Mm.
Genge in, we locked him out. Porter is great in the loose. Porter is on my bench. Porter comes in for the last half hour. Porter
Okay.
carries like a man possessed for half an hour and just barrels over Aussies. But I start Genge purely get him in a loose head, get him scrummaging. It's an easy call.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I actually went with mine will come up in a minute. I went with Porter, just thinking I want Genge off the bench. I actually have.
Yeah, that's
I'm sorry,
yeah.
guys. I
Yeah.
might have the best bench of the lot of you. Sorry,
And
that's just the
like
way it is. But
I can see I
go on.
understand that entirely, but I love the idea of Porter, and I wish Leinster and Ireland did it more. Porter coming in for half an hour. Like that scares any team in Europe.
Yeah, that is
You
true
can't
because
stop
he
it.
is a behemoth.
Yeah.
You've gone differently from Adam. So you've gone with Joe McCarthy, Ollie Chesham, Henry Pollock, Jack Conan. Can I just say, I do like the vibes of this one,
Yeah.
but arguably the least likely to come true.
Yes. And I
Why?
acknowledge that. Byrne will probably start.
Okay.
I went for it told you McCarthy Chesham because I think Chesham fills that half lock role that Farrell really likes.
Yeah.
Of you can have a
Mhm.
carrying six. You've Pollock and Conan who will just rock over all day, carry all day for you. Chesham and Big Joe, medium sized Joe, can interlink in both defensive sets and at rock ball.
Hmm.
Um, Tyburn will start. I feel like I should give up my Munster jersey saying Tyburn won't start. But I think I'd prefer McCarthy and Chesham, would have told you before.
Yeah. No, I can
Yeah.
see it. I can see it. I'll get on to mine in a minute. My big thing is, as much as we talk about Tyburn doesn't have the pace to cover the ground that Farrell wants at 6 anymore, I'm not sure Chesham does either. The question at that is if you go with a Morgan or a Curry, and Adam went with Jack Morgan,
Jack Morgan.
which I kind of flew past that one. But like that one makes sense. The only thing is Australia are going to be a bigger team anyways, and that's when you're under a little bit of pressure there. Maybe the most rounded team, or maybe I'm just have presenter bias. So for myself, I've gone with Hugo Keane, the fullback, just based on I'm not sure if Kinghorn gets in unless we find out he trains tomorrow.
No
That's
Bundy.
that's the big one. I haven't gone with Bundy. I've gone with Freeman and Lowe. I've gone with Huey Pilato as the two centres. I would go with Bundy, but I just feel like under pressure, Farrell could go back to what's the cohesion pick. The
Yeah.
cohesion pick ultimately is Tui Pilato and Jones.
Yeah.
Gibson Park and Russell is nailed on. I am going to home hand up for anyone listening to United Rugby Rewind. My hot take was Finn Russell is as likely to not make the tour as to make the tour and not start a test. Um, he obviously is the nailed on 10. I think we can take Johnny Sexton's comments with a pinch of salt from back then. I've gone with Porter, as I said, Sheehan, Stewart, no Tyke Byrne. I've gone to Toje, McCarthy, Chessum, Vanderfleer, Conan. But my bench, and this is where I think I might have won over on the rest of you, then is Genge, Kelleher, Furlong, Byrne. I think they'll go Pollock.
Yeah.
Okay, Mitchell plus one, probably not as exciting, and then Bundy on the bench. Just saying, guys.
Yeah.
That like the only thing is the flip side is I've said for years I don't think Andy Farrell used his bench quick enough. That's the only thing, but I think
He
that's a
does
really
not.
exciting bench.
I,
So what are we thinking? We're going to kind of wrap things up here.
I'm really interested to like I think Ben Earls had a really cracking tour. I think he's had a really good tour. I think he
But
deserves that stone. But
there's
it's
a
Jack
but.
Conan.
He's
Yeah,
kind of
it's
been with the dirt trackers, and I hate calling them that.
yeah, that's yeah,
and that's
yeah,
part of my Tyke Byrne reasoning. He's played a
yeah.
lot of the midweek games, and
Mm,
Joe's going to start. McCarthy is starting. I can't see Farrell not playing him. He loves him. He loves everything he does.
yeah,
And I don't
And
think he'll put Byrne at 6.
I'm the
as
same. We get
another
into predictions here, so because we've gone over the
yeah,
team. Adam, I'll start with yourself. So Lions, Australia. It's the only test they've won in the last in this century. It's the
yeah,
only test series they've looked like winning in this century. If you can include 2001, they have to win.
Yeah.
They simply cannot lose this test series.
no.
Surely, surely it's going to be Lions. Is the question is it Lions in two? Is it Lions 3-0? What do you think?
I hope for Australian rugby's sake that it's Lions in two, because what would do worse for
Not,
an
I
Australian?
don't mean by the second test. I mean
No, no,
2-1.
that's what I mean. Yeah, 2-1,
Oh
that's
yeah.
what I mean. I hope that Australia gets some type of win, because I think if it's 3-0, it would damage Australian rugby that much in terms of they've got a
With
home
a
World
World
Cup
Cup coming up as well.
yeah, World Cup coming up. Their crowds have reached heights that they haven't hit since, well, the Brumbies broke their record in terms of attendance like since 2001 or something like that.
Yeah. And the Waratahs
The
was pretty healthy as well. And the
well,
MCG holds like 90,000
it's
and that's
not
sold out.
it,
So
it's I thought it was near enough 100,000 for that cricket stadium, to be fair.
I think so. It's just whether they have
Yeah,
to make renovations for rugby is the only thing.
yeah, but like you have to think like, as a purely like a rugby fan, you want like you can be a Lions fan and say 3-0, we want to beat them all, you know, but I think it's gonna be 3-0. Like my head says it's gonna be 3-0. My heart says it's gonna be 2-1, just primarily based on I don't want to like have Australian rugby dead and buried and all of them fly over to rugby league, because that's the way it's going at the minute.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I don't disagree there. I don't want it to be a washout.
yeah,
Regardless, I would like I don't care enough about the Alliance emotionally to ever want it to be 3-0 because I'll just zone out even
yeah,
quicker than I should do. But and you the two, you know this, I'm a big Joe Schmidt fan, and I think Joe Schmidt could get something out of Australia to get a win in one of the first two tests. Now, there's an argument to be made it needs to be the first test. Again, that's an argument to be made at the whole thing about the buy-in and Australia have enough going on that if they lose the first, Australian fans might not care, and then you've lost them for a week. We'll wait and see on that one. But I don't know. I do trust Joe Schmidt, but they mightn't have Noah Lolaseo. Their form has been patchy. They haven't played a lot of games. Like they've only played one game this calendar year is the thing. The Lions have played more. I know they're a scratch team, but I do trust Joe. And I look at what he did to Ireland last November and even England as well. And I'm like, he still has it. Now it's up to Andy Farrell. Can he raise his game and his Lions game? And I'm sure we'll get a great speech or whatever. But like, ultimately, I just want a competitive series. It's like the whole question that golf fans ask for a Ryder Cup. Do you want to win by like 6 or 7 points, or do you want it to lose and go down to the death? Because really, you shouldn't care that much. So it's
yeah,
like that kind of thing. Like I don't think
Yeah.
anyone should care too much about the Lions, apart from the debates, to be honest. But that's just me. Ben, I know you're similar both in some regards, but I know you'll be screaming power of four on Saturday morning.
I'm, I'm,
Your
I'm,
your predictions, how's it gonna go?
I'm pretty much the exact same. Unlike Adam, kind of like yourself, I think Australia will win this weekend. I think they'll win the first test. The Lions will win 2-1. I'd be relatively confident on that. but I can see Joe Schmidt having a game plan this weekend that works, that gets over Cohesion RFC. They won't win by a lot, they'll win by a score. But my heart kind of says Australia might do it on Saturday.
Oh, that would be fun.
That
I think
would make it good.
it needs it.
And like, they'll need
needs
to. If the Lions win by 10 to 20 points on Saturday, there will be no one at the second test, and it'll be 3-0.
Well, there will, because to get into politics for a second, there'll be so many Irish people, like we've seen at all the other matches.
The diaspora will all be there, but it'll be 3. If they win Saturday, it's 3-0.
I think. What was it when you look at the health of Australian rugby 12 years ago in the 2013 like in the 2013 Lions, you'd say like every game was a sellout. It was like proper buzzing for the Lions. They all had those wee little yellow hats, remember? But like they had like a proper buzz towards the Lions. Whereas now you're sort of like, oh, it is a Lions tour in Australia. It doesn't seem like there's much buzz. They look like there was more Kiwis in the crowd for the Aussie Kiwi game. There's just a bunch of like Highlanders jerseys and like Hurricanes jerseys, and you're like, oh, they're supporting that
that's
team.
Just Adam. That's just Adam.
But
it's a very good point, because before we go, like, it's technically the weakest team the Lions have ever faced in the World Cup era, because Australia were eliminated in the pool stages in 2023. In 2013, where they weren't at their best, they were in a bit of a slump, but they had lost one of the best rugby teams in all time in 2011, and lost to the best rugby team in all time in 2015 in the final. So it's like they weren't that bad either. They probably they could have won it. Like, again, Curtly Beale slip in the first test, they could have won it. So there's all that to kind of balance, and I think I'm going to go 2-1. I think Ben's going to go 2-1. Adam, 2-1, 3-0?
Yeah, 2-1.
Okay. If we get 2-1, I think we're happy. But, gentlemen, we'll leave it at that for opening salvo. We'll hope to have a Leinster man on with the 14 Leinster Lions to talk when we're back. We'll be back after. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break. So we'll space it out. So we'll be back after the Lions test. We'll discuss the Lions kind of in full and any news. And then we'll be back a couple of weeks later to start our previews, just so we get a nice run of speed to get into things. But we'll have so much Irish Lions to talk about. We might even do we do a depth chart or a squad ranking tier list, something like that. Come up with funny names. I think that's a good way of doing it.
Can we do an all-time Ireland Lions team?
No, we're not doing an all-time Irish Lions.
Tom Court, Rory Best, Tommy Bowe,
Eric Miller, and Shane Byrne. Where do we put them? Because they retired before Adam was born. So what do we do with these guys? Anyway,
John McBride. No one was born then.
No. For different reasons, I'm not going to bring up Willie John McBride. But if for some reason you like what you heard tonight, or watched if you're on YouTube, because I think we've had issues with the podcast streams, make sure to smash the like and subscribe buttons wherever you get your podcast, or on YouTube, as I said. Turn on that little bell icon to get notified whenever a latest show drops. The Rap podcast, they're going to have a busy week. We know this with all that's going on in Welsh Rugby. So make sure to tune into them. If you do have any questions or thoughts, you can get us on Twitter or via the comments, where our esteemed producer, Lee G, is always watching. But from me, Caolán, from Adam, and from Ben, until next time, thank you very much for tuning in, and slán go fóill.